First contact. When the Grelnak ships first appeared in Earth's orbit, humanity reacted with a mixture of fear and wonder. The aliens, with their imposing 7-foot frames and iridescent scaled skin, claimed to come in peace. Their ambassador, Supreme Commander Zivnar, established diplomatic relations with the United Nations. Jack Harlow, a retired Marine Corps sniper working as a civilian consultant for NASA, was among the first humans selected to join a cultural exchange program. Alongside him was Dr. Linda Mason, a brilliant xenolinguist who had helped develop the translation algorithms now facilitating communication between species. Their technology is centuries beyond ours, Linda whispered as they toured the Grelnak's mothership. Look at the precision of everything they build. Jack nodded but remained quiet. Something about the aliens' demeanor fell off to him, particularly their dismissive attitudes when observing Earth's military capabilities. During a demonstration of human weaponry, Supreme Commander Zivnar couldn't contain his amusement when watching Earth's soldiers at the firing range. "Your projectile weapons are so primitive," he said through the translator, "and your accuracy is concerning. How have you survived as a species for so long?" Jack noticed Linda's face flush with embarrassment, but he simply smiled. The aliens didn't understand what they were seeing. The cultural exchange continued for weeks. Humans shared their art, music, and technology, while the Grelnaks revealed only carefully selected aspects of their advanced civilization. Jack observed how they always seemed to be studying Earth's defenses and resource centers rather than cultural landmarks. One evening, after a demonstration where human soldiers appeared to shoot poorly compared to the precise Grelnak's warriors, Jack met with General Susan Brooks in a secure room at the Pentagon. "They think we're weak," Jack said quietly. "I see it in the way they watch us, the questions they ask." General Brooks nodded. "Our intelligence suggests they have more ships hiding in our solar system than they've disclosed. What do you make of their weapons?" "Advanced, but not unbeatable," Jack replied. "Their armor has weak points at the joints. Their ships vent heat in predictable patterns. And they seem to have no concept of indirect targeting. So they've noticed our apparent poor marksmanship." Jack smiled. "They've completely misunderstood it. Every missed shot during our demonstrations has been deliberate, testing their reaction times, identifying material weaknesses, mapping their technology. They think we're incompetent because they expect everyone to shoot like they do." General Brooks pulled up a classified file on her tablet. "The President has authorized Operation Misdirection to continue. Keep appearing inferior. Keep gathering data. We need to understand every weakness before they realize we're not as helpless as they believe." As Jack left the Pentagon that night, he looked up at the stars where the massive Grelnak ships hovered. The aliens had laughed at human marksmanship, never realizing that humans weren't missing their targets. They were hitting exactly what they aimed for: information, weaknesses, survival. The real target wasn't the bullseye. It was the Grelnaks themselves, and they had no idea they were already in human crosshairs. 3 months into the cultural exchange, tensions began to rise. The Grelnaks had shared little of their advanced technology, claiming humans weren't developed enough to handle it responsibly. Meanwhile, they continued mapping Earth's resources with suspicious thoroughness. During a diplomatic dinner, Zivnar challenged Earth's representatives to a marksmanship competition. "To better understand your capabilities," he flamed. General Susan Brooks, the Joint Chiefs representative, accepted immediately. "We'll select our 5 best marksmen." Jack was chosen to lead the human team. His fellow shooters included Olivia Diaz, a police SWAT sniper, Richard Powell, an Olympic gold medalist, Karen Webb, an Army Ranger, and Alan Franklin, a hunting champion from Montana. The Grelnaks team arrived with weapons that looked like elegant crystalline rifles. Their demonstration was flawless, each shot hitting dead center of traditional bullseye targets at distances that impressed even Jack. When the humans' turn came, their performance seemed erratic by comparison. The Grelnaks observers chittered among themselves, their translator devices occasionally catching phrases like random shooting and no discipline. Is this truly your best? Zivnar asked, mandibles twitching in what humans had learned was their equivalent of laughter. Jack just nodded. Different species, different approaches. After the competition, Jack gathered his team in a secured room that was regularly swept for surveillance devices. Good work today, he told them. You hit every test point exactly as planned. I don't know how much longer I can stand their mockery, Richard said, his pride clearly wounded. Their overconfidence is our advantage, Karen replied. Every time they laugh, they reveal something new. Jack projected a holographic model of a Grelmax warrior. Today's session confirmed our theories about their armor joints. Notice how the chest plate connects to the shoulder guard. There's a 2mm gap when they raise their arms above a 30-degree angle. I also noticed they flinch when shots come from unexpected angles, Olivia added. Their training seems entirely focused on frontal attacks. Alan nodded. And did you see how they handle their weapons? They have no concept of shooting from cover. It's always standing in the open, perfect posture. The team continued analyzing the day's observations, adding new data to their growing understanding of Grelmax weaknesses. Later that evening, Jack met Linda in a park far from any possible alien surveillance. They walked casually, speaking quietly. The xenobiology team has been analyzing their tissue samples, Linda said. Their hearing range doesn't detect our lower frequencies well. Anything below 100 Hz is nearly inaudible to them. That could be useful, Jack replied. Any progress on their language? Yes. Their formal diplomatic speech differs significantly from what they say among themselves. I've intercepted communications suggesting cultural exchange translates closer to preliminary assessment in their private discussions. Jack stopped walking and looked up at the distant lights of the Grelmax ships orbiting Earth. How much time do you think we have? Linda's face grew serious. Based on their communication patterns and resource surveys, I'd say they're building towards something. Maybe 3 months, possibly less. Then we need to accelerate our plans, Jack said. The next shooting demonstration is in 2 days. Make sure all monitoring equipment is ready. We need to capture every reaction, every subtle movement. As they parted ways, Jack couldn't help but smile at the irony. The Grelmax thought humans were terrible shots, never realizing that every missed bullseye was a direct hit on the real target, the aliens themselves. That evening, Jack met with Linda and General Brooks in a secure room swept for surveillance devices. They're planning something, Jack said. The questions they ask, the areas they're most interested in. It doesn't match their claims of cultural exchange. Linda nodded. Their language contains military terminologies that the translator initially missed. They keep referring to Earth as a resource acquisition, rather than an alley world. General Brooks sighed. Intelligence has intercepted communications suggesting their fleet is larger than they initially disclose. We believe more ships are hiding behind Jupiter. They think we're weak, Jack said. That demonstration today wasn't just cultural exchange. They were assessing threat levels. But our shooters performed poorly, Linda said. Jack smiled. Did they? Or did they perform exactly as planned? General Brooks nodded. Operation Misdirection is in effect. The President has authorized Phase 2. The next morning, Jack gathered his team for a briefing. The room, located deep within a military facility, was secure from all forms of surveillance. We're expanding our operation, he explained. Starting today, we'll be conducting shooting exercises with different weapons and in various environments. He displayed a series of diagrams showing the patterns they would follow in the next demonstration. To an outsider, the shot placements would look inconsistent and poorly aimed, but each shooter knew the real purpose: to test specific vulnerabilities in Grelmax technology and physiology. Remember, Jack emphasized, they must believe we're simply not very good. Their overconfidence is our greatest advantage. Later that day, during a tour of a human manufacturing plant, Jack carefully observed how the Grelnax delegates reacted to Earth's industrial capabilities. They seemed particularly interested in metals processing. "Your methods are inefficient," one alien commented. "We could show you better ways." "We would appreciate the help," Jack replied humbly, noting how the alien's outer membranes fluttered, a sign of pride that Linda had identified as a potential weakness. That night, the Grelnax hosted a reception aboard their command ship. As drinks flowed, the aliens became less guarded. "Your planet has remarkable resources," a Grelnax officer named Krell-2 told Jack. "Metals we haven't seen in such concentration elsewhere." "Just basic elements to us," Jack said. "Plain naive. Nothing special." "You don't know what you have," Krell-2 replied, his voice carrying an edge that the translator couldn't quite mask. When Jack returned to Earth, he immediately reported the conversation. General Brooks added it to the growing pile of evidence about the aliens' true intentions. "Phase 2 involves more than just shooting demonstrations," she explained. "We're now feeding them carefully crafted misinformation about our capabilities and resources." "What about our real defenses?" Linda asked. "Being upgraded based on everything we've learned," the general replied. "We're retrofitting weapons to target the specific weaknesses your team has identified." Jack looked at the global defense plan displayed on the screen. It was amazing how much they had learned simply by appearing incompetent and letting the Grelnax underestimate humanity. "How long until they make their move?" he asked. "Intelligence suggests weeks, not months," General Brooks said grimly. "We need to accelerate our preparations." Jack nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. The aliens thought they were laughing at humans. Soon, they would discover their mistake. The Grelnax began making more aggressive diplomatic demands: access to rare earth mineral deposits, permission to establish bases in strategic locations. Their previously friendly demeanor shifted subtly toward condescension. Meanwhile, Jack continued training with his team, always under Grelnax observation, always seeming to perform below the alien standards. "Your people lack basic coordination," one Grelnax military advisor named Krex told Jack. "Your shooting patterns appear almost random." Jack shrugged. "We have our methods." What the Grelnax didn't understand was that humans hadn't been aiming for bullseyes. Each shot placement was deliberate, creating patterns that, when mapped together, revealed the structural weaknesses in Grelnax armor, ship design, and battle formations, all gleaned from careful observation during cultural exchanges. Every apparent miss was actually hitting exactly where it needed to. Linda had been collecting visual data during each practice session, feeding it into a classified program that analyzed the aliens' subtle physical reactions: which shots made them tense, which angles triggered defensive postures. The seemingly random human shooting contained carefully designed tests probing for vulnerabilities. After one particularly poor demonstration, Linda met Jack in the data analysis center beneath the Pentagon. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a thermal imaging video. When Richard fired his third shot, which appeared to miss by 2 feet, the Grelnax officer on the left exhibited a heat spike in his lower abdomen. Jack studied the footage. Defensive reaction. Exactly. Their instinct was to protect that area. It confirms our theory about a vital organ cluster there. Similar discoveries were happening worldwide. In Australia, scientists noticed the Grelnax ships always maintained specific distances from Earth's magnetic poles. In Russia, engineers identified a unique frequency that seemed to interfere with alien communication devices. All this intelligence was gathered while maintaining the appearance of an inferior species struggling to impress their advanced visitors. During a dinner at the White House, President Russell deliberately steered conversation toward topics that would reveal more alien weaknesses. "We're fascinated by your ship propulsion," she said innocently. "Our rockets seem so primitive compared to your technology." Supreme Commander Zivnar, growing increasingly comfortable with human inferiority, explained more than he should have about their drive systems. Engineers listening to the translation immediately identified critical vulnerabilities. The next day, Jack took his team to a special training facility in Nevada. Here, far from alien observation, they practiced what would really happen when the time came. "Target the junction points here and here," he instructed, pointing to a mock-up of Grelmak's armor. "When they raise their weapons, there's a 3-second exposure of the underarm connection." Each member of his team hit the targets with perfect precision, a stark contrast to their performances when aliens were watching. "How much longer do we maintain this charade?" Olivia asked. "Until they make their move," Jack replied. "Every day they underestimate us is another day we strengthen our position." That evening, satellites detected new Grelnak ships entering the solar system. The aliens were building up forces while still pretending to engage in diplomatic relations. General Brooks called an emergency meeting with Jack and Linda. "Intelligence suggests they're planning something within days," she said. "Are we ready?" Jack nodded, more ready than they could possibly imagine. They'd been so busy laughing at our shooting that they never realized we'd been aiming at them all along. 6 months after first contact, the Grelnaks revealed their true intentions. Additional ships emerged from hiding positions throughout the solar system. "Your world has resources we require," Zivnar announced to the UN General Assembly. "We have determined your species lacks the strength to defend them properly. You will cede control of designated territories or face consequences." The ultimatum gave humanity 72 hours to comply. In an emergency meeting at the Pentagon, world leaders gathered to hear General Brooks outline humanity's response. "Operation Misdirection has given us what we need," she explained. "For months, we've appeared disorganized and ineffective while actually mapping every weakness in their technology and biology." Jack presented the compiled data. "Their armor has junction points here, here, and here." He pointed to a holographic display. "Their ships have exhaust ports that can't be shielded during atmosphere entry, and their communication relies on quantum entanglement nodes that are always positioned at these specific points on their vessels." President Diane Russell looked grim but determined. "Then we proceed with the response plan. God help us all." News of the ultimatum spread quickly. Panic erupted in major cities as people feared alien invasion. This reaction was exactly what the military wanted, not because they wished for public fear, but because it reinforced the Grelmak's belief that humans were weak and disorganized. Behind the scenes, military units worldwide moved with precise coordination. Weapons specifically designed to target Grelmak's vulnerabilities were distributed to strategic locations. Civilian evacuation protocols that appeared chaotic to alien observers were actually placing people in safer areas away from likely attack zones. Jack met with his expanded team of specialized shooters. They now numbered in the hundreds elite marksmen from military and law enforcement agencies worldwide. "For months, you've been practicing what looked like poor shooting," he told them. "Now you'll use those same shot patterns against real targets. Aim for the weak points we've identified, not what would normally be center mass." Linda joined the briefing, bringing updated intelligence. The Grelnaks still believe we're scrambling in panic. Their communications show they expect an easy victory or immediate surrender. "How wrong they are," Jack said quietly. President Russell addressed the nation that evening. Her speech was carefully crafted to sound desperate to alien ears, while containing coded messages for human forces. "We face a challenge unlike any in human history," she said. "In these difficult hours, remember that appearances can be deceiving. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in being underestimated." Around the world, military commanders understood the real message. Operation Misdirection was proceeding to its final phase. As the deadline approached, Grelnak ships positioned themselves above major cities. Their weapon systems powered up, creating ominous glows visible from the ground. Supreme Commander Zivnar sent one final message. "Your primitive defenses cannot hope to match our technology. Surrender the designated territories, and we will spare your population centers." President Russell's reply was brief. "We request additional time to consider your terms." The request was a stalling tactic, giving final defensive preparations a few more precious hours. The Grelnaks granted the extension, confident in their superiority and unaware that every hour strengthened Earth's position. In his command center, Jack watched the clock counting down. "They still think we can't shoot straight," he said to Linda. She nodded. "That misconception is about to become very expensive for them." As the ultimatum deadline approached, Earth appeared to be in chaos. Civilian evacuations, seemingly disorganized military movements, and contradictory public announcements gave the impression of a planet in panic. The Grelnax observers reported back to their command that humans were responding exactly as predicted, with fear and disarray. Behind the scenes, however, operation centers worldwide were implementing the carefully crafted defense plan. Military units moved into precisely calculated positions. Civilian defense forces prepared specialized equipment designed to target specific Grelnax vulnerabilities. Jack briefed his expanded team of sharpshooters. "For months, you've been practicing shots that seemed random to our visitors. Now you know why. Each of those shot patterns targeted specific weaknesses we identified. Today, you'll be aiming at those exact same points, but on actual Grelnax targets." Linda had compiled a comprehensive guide to Grelnax physiology and technology, highlighting the vulnerable points discovered during their poor shooting demonstrations. "Remember," Jack told his team, "they think we can't shoot straight. That's our advantage." In bases across the world, soldiers studied these guides. They learned that Grelnax armor had thin sections at the neck joint and under the right arm. Their ships had vulnerable cooling vents that opened for exactly 4.3 seconds every time their weapons fired. Their command centers were always located in the lower third of each vessel. 12 hours before the deadline, Jack visited a special facility where modified weapons were being distributed to frontline troops. "These don't look impressive," one young soldier said, examining the seemingly ordinary rifle. "That's the point," Jack replied. "They're designed to appear primitive while delivering rounds that can penetrate Grelnax armor at precisely the weak points we've identified." Linda joined them, bringing updated intelligence. Their landing parties will deploy in standard formation. Their confidence level is extremely high. Internal communications suggest they expect this to be a simple resource acquisition with minimal resistance. Meanwhile, world governments continued the illusion of panic and disorganization. Emergency broadcasts contained contradictory instructions. Military units appeared to be deploying without coordination. To Grelnax observers, humanity looked exactly like the primitive, disorganized species they believed it to be. 3 hours before the deadline, Jack positioned his sniper teams around major cities. Each team had specific assignments based on expected Grelnax deployment patterns. "Remember your training," he told them via secure communication. "Don't aim where they expect. Aim where we know it hurts." President Russell made one final address that was deliberately broadcast to the Grelnax fleet. "Citizens should seek shelter immediately. Our military forces will attempt to defend key infrastructure, but civilian safety is our priority." The message sounded like admission of defeat. In reality, it was confirming that all civilians had been moved to safe zones and military forces were in their final positions. In their command ship, Supreme Commander Zivnar and his officers watched with satisfaction. "They scatter like prey animals," Zivnar observed. "Their weapons cannot harm our armor or ships. This will be a simple operation." Krex, his military advisor, nodded in agreement. "Their shooting skills are abysmal. They cannot even hit stationary targets reliably." Neither alien understood that humans had been practicing exactly the shots they would need when the real conflict began. Every missed bullseye had been a data point, every poor performance a carefully constructed test. As the deadline approached its final hour, Jack checked in with his teams worldwide. Everyone was in position. Everyone understood their role. "They've spent months laughing at our shooting," he told them. "Let's show them what we were really aiming for." When the ultimatum expired, the Grelnax launched their first assault on major population centers. Their ships descended with confident precision, expecting minimal effective resistance. What they encountered instead was devastatingly targeted firepower. Human snipers positioned at calculated distances fired at the seemingly armored but actually vulnerable junction points in Grelnax battlesuits. Regular infantry used modified ammunition designed to exploit the aliens' particular biological weaknesses. Air forces targeted the previously identified exhaust ports and communication nodes with surgical precision. The Grelnax commanders were bewildered by the transformation. The disorganized humans had suddenly become lethally efficient. Impossible. Zivnar bellowed as reports of massive Grelnax casualties flooded in. Their weapons are primitive. Their aim was terrible. But the evidence was undeniable. The humans hadn't been missing. They had been studying. Every failed shot during months of demonstrations had been deliberately placed to test reactions, analyze materials, and identify vulnerabilities without alerting the Grelnax to human intentions. By the end of the first day, 3 Grelnax capital ships had been disabled using tactics specifically designed to exploit weaknesses the aliens never realized they had revealed. In New York, Jack led a team that targeted the first wave of Grelnax ground troops. As the aliens marched from their landing craft in perfect formation, expecting easy victory, the human snipers opened fire. Target pattern Alpha, Jack ordered, just like we practiced. The shots seemed scattered and at random, hitting shoulders instead of heads, lower legs instead of center mass. But these were exactly the points where Grelnax armor connected, where their biological systems were most vulnerable. The alien formation collapsed in confusion as warriors fell to shots they had believed couldn't harm them. Across the Atlantic, Karen Webb commanded European defense forces with the same tactics. Her teams fired sonic weapons that operated at frequencies the Grelnax couldn't hear, but that disrupted their inner ear equivalents, causing disorientation. Pattern Delta on the command unit, she ordered. Her shooters fired at the officers, targeting the exact points where their specialized armor joined. Weaknesses identified during months of poor shooting demonstrations. In orbit, human space forces launched seemingly primitive missiles at the Grelnax fleet. The aliens didn't bother to evade, confident in their superior defenses. Their propulsion is too slow to threaten us, a Grelnax commander reported dismissively. This confidence shattered when the missiles suddenly accelerated and struck precisely at the thermal exhaust ports that opened when the alien ships fired their weapons. The explosions triggered cascading failures in ship after ship. Linda coordinated from the Pentagon, monitoring alien communications. "They're completely confused," she reported. "Their tactical channels are filled with disbelief. They keep asking how we could suddenly become so accurate." By sunset, the Grelnax forces were in retreat worldwide. What they had expected to be an easy conquest had turned into a devastating defeat. Jack watched from his position as alien ships frantically abandoned Earth's atmosphere. "Target their engines with pattern Omega," he ordered his heavy weapons teams. The resulting shots hit specific points on the fleeing ship's drive systems, precisely the vulnerabilities that had been mapped during seemingly failed demonstrations months earlier. In the Pentagon War Room, General Brooks watched the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. "Operation Misdirection has succeeded beyond our expectations," she said. "The Grelnax never realized we were studying them all along." President Russell nodded. "They thought we couldn't shoot straight. They never understood we weren't aiming at the targets they could see." The Grelnax War Council gathered on their command ship, facing an unthinkable scenario: defeat at the hands of a supposedly inferior species. How could we have misunderstood them so completely? Krex asked, nursing a wound from a human bullet that had somehow penetrated his supposedly impervious armor. Supreme Commander Zivnar had no answer. The humans had executed a deception so thorough that the Grelnax, despite their technological superiority, had walked into a perfectly laid trap. On Earth, Jack and Linda watched from the Pentagon as the remaining Grelnax ships began retreating from Earth orbit. "They never understood our history," Jack mused. "Humans have always been adaptable. We study, we learn, we find weaknesses." Linda nodded. "They thought technology was the only measure of advancement. They never considered that seeming weakness might be strategy. 3 days later, a single Grelnax communication pod landed outside the United Nations. Inside was a message from Zivnar, a formal surrender and a request to renegotiate terms for peaceful coexistence. The final line of the message revealed their newfound respect. "We misinterpreted your species' capabilities. A warrior who appears to miss their target, but achieves their true objective is more dangerous than one who simply aims well. We acknowledge humanity's superior strategic thinking and wish to learn from you rather than conquer." President Russell accepted the surrender but added significant security protocols for any future interaction. Earth would proceed cautiously with its new place among the stars. The following week, a small delegation of Grelnax diplomats, genuine diplomats this time, arrived to begin peace negotiations. Jack and Linda were present as advisors. "Your deception was complete," the lead Grelnax diplomat said. "We believed ourselves to be studying you, never realizing you were the ones gathering intelligence. It's an old human strategy," Jack explained. "Sometimes appearing weak is the greatest strength." Over the coming months, Earth established new relations with the Grelnax civilization. The terms were carefully structured to ensure no further aggression, with monitoring systems in place to verify compliance. Jack was appointed to head a new international defense organization tasked with protecting Earth from potential future threats. His experience with the Grelnax deception became standard training for military forces worldwide. Linda's work in xenolinguistics expanded to include psychological studies of alien communication patterns. Her research helped humans better understand not just what other species said, but what they truly meant. 1 year after the failed invasion, Jack visited a military academy where new cadets were learning the lessons from the Grelnax encounter. "The most important targets," he told them, "are often not the ones your enemy expects you to aim for. Information, understanding. These can be more powerful than any weapon." A young cadet raised her hand. "But weren't you taking a huge risk? What if they had seen through the deception?" Jack smiled. "That's why we weren't just pretending to miss. We were gathering real data with every shot. The deception worked because it was built on a foundation of genuine research." On the anniversary of the Grelnax surrender, President Russell unveiled a monument in Washington, D.C. It depicted a human hand and a Grelnax hand joined in peace, with an inscription that read, "Understanding is the truest aim." As Jack often told new recruits in the years that followed, sometimes the most powerful shot isn't the one that hits the bullseye. It's the one your enemy doesn't understand until it's too late. The Grelnax had laughed at human shooting until they realized humans weren't aiming at the target. By then, it was already too late.